Hi guys, Heather Neal here at the Battle Mountain High School greenhouse. I just wanted to take a second and go over the two varieties of tomatoes that we are offering this year for our greenhouse plant sale. We have the Better Boy tomato and the Super Fantastic. Both tomatoes are going to be a beefsteak type tomato. They're going to create large fruit, juicy fruit that'd be perfect for sandwiches or eating right off the vine. I'm going to talk about the Super Fantastic because it's probably a little bit less known. Both Better Boy and Super Fantastic take about 70 days to mature. You can see that they've already started to blossom, and so they're pretty much ready to go in the ground, and they could start producing fruit really quickly, really soon. Both types of tomatoes are indeterminate, meaning that they're going to produce tomatoes all summer and fall long until they freeze. So that's great because some of the varieties that we see around now, they only produce fruit for one or 2 weeks and then they're done. These guys will produce it all fall long until you let it freeze. Couple of things I wanted to go over. The Better Boy, it also is a 70-day maturity plant as well. This Better Boy creates a fruit that's about 16 ounces in weight. The Super Fantastic is a little bit smaller at 10 ounces. But either way, you're going to get a fruit that's going to be really meaty and juicy. So I encourage you to look at both of them when you're purchasing them online this week. First, just a couple tips. I know we have a lot of people that are starting to garden for the first time, and I just want to share a couple tips and tricks that I've picked up and have found throughout my gardening experience. First of all, I'm going to teach you, I taught my students, we always support the plant when we transplant. Okay, so you can just keep your fingers between it, and that kind of keeps the plant stable, and the stem can be really weak. And you can see that our tomatoes have done really, really well, and so they're pretty tall and big, so that stem is going to be kind of weak, so please support it. The next thing is, when you get a lot of these, we call it root bound. There's nothing wrong with them, but I've taught my students, all you got to do is just break these roots apart. It's not going to do anything to hurt the root or the plant, but basically if you don't do something like this, those roots are going to continue to grow in a circle, and they're not really going to expand and create that base that we need for a tomato. So that's one thing you want to do. Make sure it gets plenty of water, and it'll take quite a bit to begin with. Once it's transplanted, it'll be good to go. Another tip or trick that we've learned, my grandma Alice used to garden quite a bit in Star Valley, Nevada, and so a lot of cold weather. Our frost date is really June 1st, but you can put the tomatoes in the ground before that. What does a June frost date mean? It just means that we can get frost clear up till June 1st. So you want to kind of take care and watch these, especially as it gets cold at night, and make sure they get covered up. You can use an old milk jug, take the lid off during the day, cut the bottom off, and then you have a milk jug you can put on. It's a mini greenhouse, soda bottles, you have walls of water, there's plastic you can put over the top at night. Anything along that line will help protect these tomatoes from our late season frost if you decide to put them in the ground before June 1st. Another thing Grandma Alice taught me was we're going to go ahead and pick off all of these extra stems right here. And if you look, when you get on this stem, you'll see they're kind of hairy. She taught me that these can eventually become roots. And so I like to dig a little trench, and I want to make sure it's at least this depth, maybe 1.5 times the root ball depth. And then I go ahead and I trench the tomato, and I'll lay this in the ground, and then I put the tomato in, and I just am going to keep these leaves up. I'd almost even take these off as well. So I only have 1 or 2 up at the top. Okay? And what this does, I'm going to cover it and just kind of leave this, pull this up, and the light will automatically pull the tomato plant up. And basically what's going to happen is going to give this tomato a huge root system that all of a sudden it's going to be able to, it'll just explode. And we always seem to get better yields that way. Okay, when you get to the point where, so you can trench tomatoes, and they do great with that. One of the other things that might happen, tomatoes are a self-pollinating plant. And that means that basically we need to be able to, they can take and pollinate themselves. However, that does have to have some help. We have to have pollinators, there's gotta be wind or something along that line. If we don't have any of these and your tomatoes are really well protected, you may have to go in and help pollinate them. So basically what you're gonna do is just gonna take and you're gonna tickle or take a Q-tip and just dab between flowers. Okay, you're gonna find the anther and the pollen up there, and then you're just gonna kind of touch around there. You don't have to know all the plant parts, but just go ahead and just touch that. You can use a paintbrush, Q-tip, anything along that line. Or they even make these machines, these little tools that are called the tickler, and it just kind of helps pollinate. Okay, so those are some things that you'd like to keep in mind when you're planting the tomatoes. So I think I've talked about both. Both are 70-day maturity. They both create pretty large fruit. The super fantastic is a little bit smaller if you don't want a big fruit. The better boy is gonna be a little bit bigger. If you have any questions or if you have any tips and tricks you'd like to share, please comment below or contact me at hneal@landernv.net. Thanks.